Welcome to Bridge Out Ahead, the podcast where we dig into what's under construction in life, business, and community. I'm your host, Bridger Hopkins, and around here, we're honest about the journey, the progress, the setbacks, and unexpected turns that teach us something worth passing on. Today's guest is Jessica Johnson. She is a storyteller, but not just the literary sense. She's a mother, a survivor, and someone who's had to keep rebuilding when the road ahead keeps washing out. We're talking about what happens when life hits back and how she found meaning on the other side of tragedy, and why purpose often begins where self-sufficiency ends. Jessica, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Not only are you an author, but you have a family. It's kind of been a lot of your purpose of your life. But tell me a little bit about your background.
I'm from Ohio, and I attended college at Crown College in the cities. And when I was a junior, I did an internship as a youth pastor, and that brought me up to Grand Rapids. So that's how I ended up here. And during that internship, I met a family named the Johnson family. They had a son who was away at school. And when I met him, it was like I almost was knocked out. Like I just knew. So his name was Bart, and we got married and moved around a little bit before finally ending up in Grand Rapids permanently.
What were you doing when you guys were moving around during that time?
Well, he is an engineer. So the first move, I moved to Fargo. He wasn't finished with school. And then he did his master's at University of Michigan. So we moved to Ann Arbor. Then he did a co-op with Whirlpool. So we had to move to St. Joseph, Michigan. And then he got a job with John Deere. So for 3 years, we were in Dubuque before he finally ended up at what was Itasca Community College.
Cool. Mm-hmm. With that, you guys were kind of settling into married life and starting a family. Yeah. But what we alluded to is you've had some more detours maybe than most. Could you get into that with us?
Sure. We had our first child, Emma, at Michigan while he was still finishing up his master's. When she was 2 weeks old, we moved to Iowa. And then we had our second child, Andy, when we were in Iowa, and he was normal and started off healthy as a little baby, but it wasn't long before he started showing signs of like frequent infection, weird infections, rashes, constant ear infections, and high fevers. And I took him to doctors over and over, and they just said, well, sometimes kids just pick up everything that's going around, or sometimes kids just get sick a lot. And meanwhile, I had a daughter who never was sick, and they were always in the same places. I'm like, well, she's not getting sick. So, I mean, I wasn't brushed off, but they didn't think anything of it till I had my third son, which we had moved back to Grand Rapids by that time. And we had our third child, and he had the same kind of background of constant sickness. And I brought him to the doctor all the time. It was ear infections, bronchitis, pneumonia, one thing after another. And they said, yeah, some kids just get everything, and they didn't run any tests. Mm-hmm. And I just knew, I'm like, this is not normal, because I had a child to compare them to that was not getting sick all the time. And it wasn't until I think it was February of 2006 that he just got Ethan, our middle son. He got really, really sick. He had 105-degree fever. He had an ear infection. He went on antibiotics for that ear infection, but he still just wasn't getting better. I noticed his body, he had these little tiny purple dots all over. And I'm like, that doesn't look good. And I brought him in, and they were like, oh my gosh, the dots meant that his platelet count was low. The ear infection was cleared up, but he still had a fever. And they sent him to Duluth. And in Duluth, they said, this is beyond us. And they sent him to the cities. And there they ran some tests, and they discovered he had a condition called HLH, it's a blood disorder where a histiocyte, which is a white blood cell, starts to attack healthy tissue. And they started him on the treatment for that, which is chemotherapy and a bone marrow transplant, so that he was prepping for bone marrow transplant. Meanwhile, my older son, Andy, about a week later came down with all the same symptoms that Ethan had. And it was like, this is very familiar. But Andy was up in Grand Rapids and I was down in the cities. So my in-laws brought him down into the cities. We were at the U, and he had the same condition. He had HLH. But by that time, a lot of Ethan's tests came back, and they discovered that what was causing this HLH was actually a genetic disorder called XLA, which is an immune deficiency. Okay. And he was born without the ability to make antibodies.
Oh, wow.
So what they discovered is they should not have been doing chemotherapy. He actually had a virus that was behind all of it, and the chemotherapy destroyed his T cells.
Knocked down what
so
was
the
there?
little bit of an immune system that he had was killed, I guess, and he wasn't able to fight it. So he just got really sick. And with Andy coming in just a little bit behind, they knew not to start the chemotherapy on him. So what they did start was his infusions of antibodies, which is what he needed all along and what Ethan needed all along. But Ethan was just too far. It was too advanced. So for a while, they shared a bedroom or a room in the PICU at the University of Minnesota. They were together in a room on ventilators. I mean, it was every parent's worst nightmare. You know, you have two kids in intensive care, and you don't know if either one of them is going to make it. And Ethan did not. And for a while, we weren't sure if Andy was either, but he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of in the nick of time, it seems, as well, with Ethan, I'm, being just a few days or weeks ahead in where he was, being able to detect and get a jump start really made a huge impact for Andy.
Yeah, they have to grow viruses to tell what virus it is. And Ethan had started that process. It takes like 5 days to be able to identify it. So Andy benefited from all of those tests, but it just wasn't. It was too late for Ethan.
And that was a genetic disorder as well. And so, how did that play into going forward? Obviously, the tragic loss of Ethan.
Yeah.
But then, Andy, how have you guys had to deal with that?
Well, being that it was genetic, we learned a lot about it. And I know that I am a carrier, and that with each pregnancy, I had a 1 in 4 chance of having an affected child. Or I could have female carrier kids. So we had to decide if we're going to have more kids. And I just thought, I've already given this thing to 2 of my 3 kids. So my odds are good. The odds are good that
you were above the
I've already had 2 out of 3, and it's 1 in 4. So if I have more kids, there's a very good chance they'll be fine. So, and also I didn't want death to have like the last word in how many kids I had. I had dreams of having a big family, 4 kids, 5 kids, and I was down to 2. And that just wasn't like, I'm not going to let this determine how many kids we have. So we decided to have another one, and I was pretty confident that child would be fine.
By the numbers.
Yes. I'm like, okay. And it's just fair. It would just be fair if it was good, if it turned out okay. That would make sense to me.
Yeah, kind of a cosmic thing.
Yeah, like, hello. It's only fair if the next child is healthy after everything that we had been through.
Yep.
But that child was not. He was a boy again. And once you know the child is a boy, then the odds become 50-50.
Okay.
I have 1 good X chromosome and 1 bad one. I have every ability to give that good one. And somehow I just kept giving the affected chromosome. So my next son was born with the condition as well. But the difference was we knew
right away
when he was 2 weeks old.
Yeah. And
he started his infusions. I didn't mention that for life, the boys have to have infusions of antibodies from plasma donors.
Okay.
And that keeps them safe from most of the things that are circulating, most of the viruses and germs and things that are in the community.
Basically borrowing somebody else's immune system.
Their immunity, anything they've gotten or anything they've been vaccinated against. If I have polio antibodies and I donate plasma, my kids will get it's like 100 plasma donors pooled together in this little bottle.
Wow.
And every week we do those infusions. And so my fourth child got to start them at like 4 weeks old as a little baby. I had to do the infusions, and he's, he started off way at an advantage.
Yeah.
So that was, it's not easy and it's not fun to have to do that every week, but it keeps them pretty healthy.
Yeah. And, as somebody also who's dealt with childhood illnesses in one of my kids, it's hard to understand how draining it is. One, there's the emotional drain on the continuation of, addressing issues or trying to figure out issues, and having to really be an advocate for not only yourself, but also your kid. And then also just how taxing it can be, time and money and running to the appointments.
Yeah.
And
the specialists in the cities. Why does everyone have to be 3 hours away? But that's just where the doctors are.
yeah. And that's where I know for us in our first year with our third kid, it was, I think we made 14 trips down to the U, plus ER visits and things like that. And it's one of those things that you can't really prepare for, and you don't really understand how draining that can be.
Yeah.
And again, being an advocate for people, because it's easy to be thought of as like the maybe paranoid parent.
I was the helicopter parent, or I actually went to multiple doctors because I was embarrassed at first to continue to go to my pediatrician with yet another thing. I felt like she would think maybe I wasn't taking care of my kids. Like, why are they always sick? Or do you like lick their hands at the grocery store?
Which they just do anyhow.
Yeah, I didn't want it to like make me look bad, so I would go to different doctors. Like, this time I'm going to see this doctor, so they don't know. But yeah, I felt like I'm paranoid. I'm a hypochondriac. But no, it was real. But I just felt like I was maybe imagining it, but I wasn't.
And so with some of that, as they were growing up, you're still obviously dealing with it kind of week to week and month to month. Where did things go after that?
Well, I had yet another son after my fourth child, which was my third boy. We thought we'd have one more, and I was determined this one would be a girl because I had enough. But it was another boy, and he did have XLA. So at that point, I was doing infusions on 3 boys every week. But it was, we got into the rhythm. We decided Sunday evenings would be infusion night, and they would watch a movie or, just like, this is your night to do whatever you want for a couple hours. And they started school. And, at first I was scared. Andy started kindergarten when the whole swine flu epidemic started. I pulled him out for 1 week when it seemed like there was a lot of kids in his class that were absent, and I pulled him and he never got it. And so we kind of weathered that first big epidemic, and it went okay. That was like a big fear of mine. So he did fine, and they've been in sports and school, and they, so far so good.
Yeah. Well, then even that, the swine flu, that kind of alludes to obviously what happened in 2020 with COVID.
Yeah. So when we had lost Ethan back in 2006, and my son Andy was in the hospital. He was almost 3. He was in the hospital for just a couple more weeks after that because he had some extensive lung damage because he had a viral pneumonia. And they finally let us go home. And I remember my husband was like, will he have a normal life? Will he be able to be in sports and go to school? And the doctor said, yes, of course. He'll have a normal life. He can do anything that any kid can do. And he'll be able to fight most colds and viruses. The only thing you have to worry about is a new virus. Because a new virus is not going to be in that little bottle.
Right.
Because nobody else has antibodies to it. No one's ever seen it. So in the back of my mind, as they've been growing up, that's always been in the back of my mind. And we weathered the swine flu and then West Nile, for a while. I'm like, don't go outside, but nothing happened. I remember in late 2019, I started hearing about this COVID. And at that point, it was just in China. Then I was praying, like, don't let it come here. nip it in the bud now.
Yeah.
Don't let it come. And then it was on a cruise ship. I'm like, okay, keep it on the cruise ship. This is my worst nightmare coming true.
Yeah.
And it eventually, as you know,
Everywhere.
Yeah, it exploded. It was everywhere. And the doctor's words, of course, are in my head. The only thing you have to worry about is a new virus. And so I just imagined my boys without antibodies to this COVID. I'm like, I'm going to lose them all. I'm going to lose all 3 of them. They have no way to fight this. It's not in their medication. It takes 9 months to manufacture that medication. But first, you've got to get people sick with it so they can donate their plasma with antibodies in it. And I sat on the couch for like a year in fear, reading articles, reading medical journals, just like, can you survive this if you don't make antibodies? How are my kids going to get through this? And that was a very low point for me because I was a vegetable. I didn't do anything. And I just lived in fear that whole year, like from late 2019 to maybe mid 2020, 2021. I don't know.
Well, and I think you weren't alone in that because there was so much going on for people who even knew they were healthy and didn't have issues.
Yeah.
It's a major concern for people. Obviously, the world shut down.
Right.
And then you are even more focused on it because you had an acute reason for it.
Yeah.
What would you say got you through that time?
Nothing got me through it until my kids came down with COVID.
Okay.
And when they got sick, my son, Matthew, he sneezed once. And I said, let's get you checked. He tested positive. I think he had a fever of 99. Yeah. And he sneezed that one time and maybe he had a runny nose. I was shocked. Like, they must have only needed T cells and the rest of their, and they have other parts of the immune system. They just don't have the B cell, which is kind of a big deal. But they all 3 eventually got COVID. I was able to rest. And then I looked back and I was like, I wasted my entire year waiting for this thing that actually, when it happened, it wasn't a big deal. And I think I realized, everyone says, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough worries of its own. But it's like, obviously, I spent a whole year worrying about tomorrow. And when it happened, it wasn't a really big thing. So then
sometimes it's hard to realize that until it's the day after tomorrow.
I know.
You're like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
I mean, I'm really glad they didn't get sick. I thought they were all going to die and I'd have to go through that again, but with all of them. And it wasn't like that at all. But then I realized, like, man, I just wasted like an entire year of my life worrying.
How would you say that changed your mindset on not only their condition, but just things in general?
I've always struggled with anxiety and worry. And that was a point where the worry and the anxiety kind of took over. And it was the first time I started thinking, I maybe would benefit from therapy. So I started thinking about starting therapy, but I didn't start it yet at that point. But it just started me thinking, like, sometimes I might need a little help because this is too much. That whole thing was just too much for me. And I know I said more than once, like, I feel like I'm losing my mind. So it was one point in my life that I know I was in a little bit of a dark space. Yeah.
And it's one thing that's tough too. In almost any scenario where you're dealing with mental health, a lot of times it's normal things to an unnormal or an unnatural level.
Very much.
And knowing how to view it, or, okay, is it to the degree where I need to address this?
Yeah.
And that can definitely be the challenge. So, moving forward and out of that, kind of weathering the COVID storm and where you're moving past it, then how did things go from there?
Things were great. That was a good year. We took advantage of the fact that COVID lowered the prices to fly anywhere, and tourism really needed help. So we were able to fly our whole family to Maui for like a third of the price. It had always been our plan to eventually take a family trip to Hawaii, but our daughter got engaged. And I was like, we need to do this now or it's never going to happen with all of us. And it was affordable. We rung in the new year of 2022 in Maui. I was watching fireworks from my condo rooftop. It was amazing. 2022 started out as a great year. My daughter got married in July. My husband and I went to Scotland in September, and then girls' weekend, hunting opener, I had a mammogram, just like I normally would every year, and I got a call back. And it was, I needed to come back, and that had never happened to me. I'd had 5 mammograms, and they've always been normal. And when I got that call saying, we just need you to come back, we need to take a look at something, I just knew it wasn't going to turn out good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I went back for a second mammogram. Then they ordered a biopsy. I had a biopsy. And a week later, I went in, and our doctor said the biopsy showed that I had invasive lobular carcinoma, which is breast cancer. And so 2022 ended up not being the greatest year.
Derailed.
I was like, it's such a great year. We started it so well. And I thought, we finally have COVID behind us. I am ready to live. I am ready to just like not worry about things that I can't control. And I wrote my book, Fixed Up. It was my first fiction novel because what I had written before that was like a nonfiction, the story of our son and faith journey that took me on. And I had been writing fiction. I finished my book, Fixed Up, in October.
Okay, so just like a month before.
Yeah, so I sent it off to my editor. It was back. I had a cover artist that was working on a cover, and everything was just smooth sailing. And then suddenly, bam, you have breast cancer.
Yeah.
Like, that was the last thing I expected. Yeah.
So with that diagnosis, how did that land after everything that had happened up to that point?
At first I was, positive. I was going to view this as positively as I could. I knew I wasn't alone. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. So that means it's me and a bunch of other people. I never said, why me? Because why? I mean, there's so many people that have it. I have a lot of friends that have already had it. And since I've had it, I have friends that have been diagnosed. So I never felt like I'm being singled out, And you've been good at the odds. The odds are always, I'm like,
usually beat them.
So I started out really good with a good attitude. I went into it looking for my silver lining. I was like, I'm going to have a surgery. I decided to have a double mastectomy because knowing my history of anxiety, the last thing I wanted was to still have something there that could potentially get cancer in the future. So I just wanted to take it all and have reconstruction. I looked at the reconstruction as like a good thing, and without being like too detailed, I just wanted to like come out of that looking better than I did when I went in.
Kind of the bright or the upside.
Yeah, I'm going to have like a, plastic surgery and I'm going to look like I always said I was going to get a Baywatch body. I'm going to be the Baywatch babe that I never was. So yeah, like I wasn't scared. I was glad to have the surgery because it took the cancer out of my body. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
And hopefully a long-term solution.
Yeah.
To eliminating that potential.
Hopefully, yeah. So yeah, that was fine. It was all good. Till I woke up from the surgery. It was like an 8-hour surgery. They have 4 hours with the breast surgeon, and then the plastic surgeon comes in and does like 4 more hours. And I woke up and the surgeon said, you have a little bruising. It looks pretty angry. So just, be gentle with yourself and it'll calm down, hopefully. And what they were saying is that my skin was very traumatized. It was very, very traumatized. And I just didn't expect what happened. In the next few weeks, it was very clear that my skin was so traumatized, it was not going to recover. the purple was blood that was just sitting there. It eventually turned into tissue necrosis.
Yeah.
So the skin died. And I was fine with having cancer, but because I knew my dad died of cancer. He was 40 when he died. He had brain cancer. And so, I mean, I'm like, it's in my family. This isn't related, but I always thought maybe someday I would have cancer. It wasn't a surprise, but I mean, when it happened, it was kind of a surprise. But I thought, can't something good come out of this? They had to, 3 weeks after my mastectomy, they had to go in and remove the reconstruction. They had to take the expanders out. They had to cut like 2/3 of my skin because it wasn't going to make it. It just hardened, and I was
back to square one again.
Yeah, I was like, great. This is not. It was worse. I felt like one of those dummies at a clothing store. Just it wasn't what I wanted to look like. It wasn't my plan. It wasn't how it was supposed to go. And I was mad. Like, why? If I have to have breast cancer, can't I just get something good out of it? Or why can't something just go right for once? And it brought me back to like my kids. I had a 1 in 4 chance of having an unhealthy child, and yet I was 4 for 5. I gave that bad X chromosome to all 4 of my boys. I had no boy that wasn't affected by that genetic disorder. And I think this failure was like the breaking point. Why can't I have surgery and just heal normally like everybody else?
Yeah, you're on the wrong side of all the statistics.
It was the last straw. And I had to be flat for 6 months. And those 6 months were probably the darkest 6 months of my entire life. Even after losing a child, I think it just was like one too many disappointments. I couldn't eat. I didn't find any joy in food. I didn't do anything. I couldn't laugh. I thought I was going to die. I'm like, well, breast cancer does recur. A percentage of people's breast cancer does come back as stage 4. And I was like, well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me because that's just how life is. That's how things go. And so I just got very, very discouraged. I felt like, why bother? And my husband was like, you cannot keep going like this. And I felt like, yeah, I think I hit my breaking point at that point. I was just in a very low spot.
Yeah, and you kind of say like you were just done. Like, hey, everything's against me.
Yeah.
Which is a tough place to be because when everything's against you, what can you do about the world? Yeah. But, what really helped you get through, that exact point, kind of the low of the low?
Well, my husband kidnapped me and took me to the North Shore. He's like, we're just going to have a reset. We're going to go on a little trip, get away from everything. We're just going to have a mental reset. It was April, so it was like waterfall season, and it was cool. He just needed me to get away. And then he just said, we cannot keep going like this. And at the same time, I had a good friend who, she's always a good one to talk to when I'm dealing with stuff. She's a good listener. And she said, you have had a lot of things, but you also have a lot of blessings. You have a lot of good things in your life, and you need to focus on those. Instead of focusing on things that you've lost or things that haven't gone well, focus on the blessings. Another friend gave me a thankfulness journal. So every day I would go in there and I would write things that I was thankful for, good things that had happened that day. I had to intentionally think about good things because my mind was always going towards the negative, thinking about things that didn't go well or how nothing works out for me. I just had to change my mental inner monologue to purposefully thinking about good things.
When people approached you with that, how did you respond? When someone comes and says, hey, you're just thinking about negative things and we need to change and there's a lot of good. How did you handle that?
Well, at first I rolled my eyes, obviously. Well, you aren't in my situation, so it's easy for you to say. But it was an exercise that I just had to do. And your mom even would say, fake it till you make it, or act the way you want to feel, or, if
you can't think yourself
Yes.
into a new way of acting, act your way
Yeah.
into a new way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. It was that, like, I have to just do this on purpose until it becomes natural.
It's even like, you think of like, oh, I ate toast this morning and I actually kind of liked it. Like, put that in the journal.
Yeah.
Like,
The
it was
littlest
good.
thing. The toast was good.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. You're like, oh, perfect. It could be a start
Yeah.
to building up from there.
Yeah. And at the same time, I had been having I think my anxiety peaked at that time too. I started having a lot of anxiety, very irrational anxiety. It was like it just peaked.
Mm-hmm.
I was worried about every mole on my body, which is weird. I've never had skin cancer, so I don't know why I suddenly became obsessed with it. I think someone told me there was a link between breast cancer and skin cancer, and I just ran with it. And then suddenly I was obsessed with moles. I went to the dermatologist like every month. I went to 2 different dermatologists, so they didn't know that I was going that frequently. I had 11 moles removed. They were all fine. But I knew that wasn't normal. And I knew that I was obsessing and becoming irrational. And then my heart started beating irregularly. And I developed premature atrial contractions. So they're like an extra beat. And I had a lot of tachycardia, a lot of really fast heartbeats. Once my heart got involved, I knew it was time I needed to start therapy. I had thought about it in 2020, but put it off. And that was when I realized I need to go to therapy. Mm-hmm. And I started therapy, I guess it was 2023.
Okay.
And then I actually finally gave in to starting anti-anxiety medication. Because when my heart was involved, I was like, this is no joke. We can't mess around. I probably thought, I can do this on my own. I've just got to do better. But I couldn't. So I finally put away my misgivings about it, and I went on a very mild SSRI. It just gives me more serotonin. And after 3 days, my irregular heartbeat stopped. And I stopped freaking out about every little thing on my skin. I felt like it was just like a miracle. And I'm sad that I didn't start it sooner, but I've never been more myself. I kind of always thought that taking medication would make me like in a fog, or like I'm in a dreamlike state. Nothing bothers me. But actually what happened is I felt like the me of college, the me from high school, the me that I hadn't seen in 20 years finally came back. So I've become like a really strong advocate for mental health, and maybe giving something a try if you've tried everything else.
And it's an interesting aspect too. Something I've heard is a lot of times with anxiety and things like that, what ends up happening is you're looking way inward without being able to look out at some of those things. And that's where it can be hard too. Like, it seems like bad things are happening to me. You don't look up and see, there's all these other good things happening outside of me, happening around me, and having some of that, making sure you have tools from therapy on how do I start, instead of looking inward all the time, project outward, and then also having the opportunity to take some of those medications that can help you on that path, get you out of your blinders.
Yeah, it definitely
beyond
did.
yourself.
It's amazing. I didn't know that it would work, and it did very quickly.
So what was something that surprised you the most about that? You say when you kind of like came back, if you will.
My husband had often said over the last decade or so, where is the girl that I married? Where is the person that I fell in love with? I haven't been there. And I didn't even know. Like, I didn't realize how much I had changed, how different I was, till like I said, 3 days on that medication, and I was just shocked. Like I came back. I had not realized how unlike myself I had been for decades. Because it happens slowly and you just don't notice. Mm-hmm. So I was surprised, like, wow, I feel like myself. I laugh more. I feel lighter and just, it's like me. And I'm sad that people didn't get to, like, I wasn't there for my family as me. I don't know who I was, but, I do feel like I've wasted some years with the anxiety controlling or being such a big part of my life.
Yeah, and you can miss out on so much. Mm-hmm. Or I've said, because I've dealt with anxiety and kind of depression in the past as well. It's a lens more so that you look at everything through, mm-hmm. where everything's it's like gray colored lenses where everything's a little bit sadder and everything. Yeah. The great food, it doesn't taste as great, and the sun isn't as bright. Mm-hmm. And then kind of removing those filters from your eyes is pretty life-giving. Mm-hmm. And then you can change a trajectory in a lot of ways too. Yes. Okay, so Jessica, that really sets us up for kind of your time that you've been rebuilding, mm-hmm. kind of resurfacing yourself. So this really sets us up really well for the next part, where we'll dive into how you've taken that and incorporated it into what you're doing now with your writing, mm-hmm. and some of your maybe, again, looking less inward and looking outward, and how your impact can improve the lives of others. So for this, everyone be sure to hop on next and see part 2, where we dive into Jessica's writing. But again, thanks for stopping by and sharing your story and really setting us up, knowing more about you and where you're coming from today.
Okay. Thanks.
This episode of Bridge Out Ahead is brought to you by Legacy Bridge Real Estate, brokered by Grand Properties. At Legacy Bridge, we believe real estate is one of the most powerful ways to build wealth. More importantly, to build your legacy. Whether you're buying your first home, selling a property, or looking to invest, our trusted team is here to walk with you every step of the way. Legacy Bridge Real Estate, where legacies begin. Today's theme music is We're Making Good Time by Jed LaPlante. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, no matter the detour you encounter, the road ahead is still yours to build. I'm Bridger Hopkins, and this is Bridge Out Ahead.